I'm just going to try. I'm going to try Death and then Wired magazine. And again, we're just on the internet right now, so we're kind of just cooling our heels here, doing some research. It's driving me crazy. Somebody will post it in the Prison Planet forum, and then I can just copy it all and email it to you, Naomi. But no, I mean,
very much.
But the big point I didn't make earlier was, then I'd go back to my hotel at night for these 4 days watching the Marines in '99, and they would announce, the Marines are not doing this for in the U.S., they're doing this for in Macedonia and other missions. And then I would be there knowing they would tell the press that, and then letting citizens actually see it was for the... I mean, I have it on video, Naomi.
Right. No, I will look. Of course I'll look. The trouble, I have an easier time presenting an argument that is taken seriously when I can use print sources. It's hard for me to convey videotape footage in a way that is taken seriously by sort of more mainstream debate.
Well,
but I will take a look.
Yeah, you're free to use any of the clips from Police State 2000, Police State 2 the Takeover, Police State 3 Total Enslavement. This is back when I was the... Oh, we're back live on the show. Here we go.
Okay.
Bureau Stonewall, 1903 to 1954. She lost both of her babies in the second...
It's the old frog in the pot analogy. We were on a 3 in the Richter scale with martial law back in '98. We're about a 6.5 right now. Maybe a 7 with the announcement of these brigades. But also in Road to Tyranny, I interview a Marine Corps captain who saw an Army checkpoint at I-35 in 2000 and got mad. So he contacted me, showed me all the documents. They had secret programs in the late 80s with Marines dressing up in police uniforms in Norfolk, Virginia, doing gun raids and drug raids. So they've been covertly doing this for a long time, Naomi. And it goes back to Rex 84. But please continue with all your great research as we continue to collate more information here on air.
Thank you. Well, what I just wanted to say from my point of view is that, you know, when we say, well, we're at 7 in terms of martial law, I think the thing that I want us to think about is that part of what gets us to 7 is, say, the deployment of troops or passage of laws like the Defense Authorization Act of 2007 and so on. But part of what gets us to 7 and 8 and beyond is people's complacency in the face of it. So to me, the psychological piece of how we receive this is very, very important. And this is, again, why I went back to the founders and the founding generation. We really have to, you know, what I learned from the research I did in Give Me Liberty is that you can't reclaim liberty without a psychological shift in ordinary people first. What I learned is that America is supposed to be not a landmass and not a system of government primarily, but first a psychological state in which there's an inner sense of freedom, an inner commitment to freedom, and a personal conviction to be outraged and not stand for it when tyranny and oppression raise their heads. And, you know, I did find that we are being brainwashed now, not just for the last 8 years, which have been dramatic, but the last 30 years, in a messaging about what I call fake patriotism, where, for instance, you know, we're taught that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is interpreted as kind of just relax and shop, you know, is the meaning of the Declaration of Independence. But in fact, Alex, the second paragraph we're never taught, which is, you know, that the Declaration of Independence is actually a personal commitment demanded of each and every American to stand up against tyranny and oppression wherever it raises its head, but also to confront and bring down the government if it engages in repression and tyranny against the people, in a war against the people. We're committed to being revolutionaries as Americans. There's just been this like 30-year messaging. You know, it's so much deeper than just this deployment. It's been like this messaging to get us to go to sleep, get us to forget our rights. I found out that, you know, civics education is disappearing from half of U.S. high schools. You know, kids are going to college now, not knowing what a republic is supposed to look like. Not knowing what their liberties are, let alone recognize them being threatened. You know, we're being told that patriotism is about never criticizing the government or supporting any military intervention, whereas I discovered that the great Americans, the great patriots, held a mirror up to America and that that's what we're supposed to do. So I really want to stress the first shift for us is to be outraged when we hear about the deployment, to be outraged when we see this war against citizens, and
All
to
right.
take on this.
Yeah, stay there. We'll be right back in 1 minute.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
By the way, since the start of the show 2 hours ago, we've been live at PrisonPlanet.tv with Willie Nelson and now Naomi Wolf. Here's Wired Magazine 2 weeks ago. Army orders pain ray trucks. New report shows potential for death. The Army's own reports admit this ray actually kills you. And it has the control to turn it into a narrow beam and kill you. And it's got a picture of the weapons being deployed in the United States. And I just gave you the quotes from the AP with the head of the Air Force saying, use it on the American people first. Naomi Wolf, who's a best-selling author, journalist, won all sorts of awards. We are here talking about how this is the office of the executive claiming it runs everything. They brainwashed the military, even military you talk to, who are against this go, well, if the commander-in-chief says I got to do it, I'll shoot Americans, I'll arrest Congress. That's not true. You know, Nixon again said, well, when the president breaks the law, it's not breaking the law. Well, you saw what happened there. So, very, very serious. I want to take calls coming up in this hour for Naomi Wolf. I want to talk about her new book and solutions that her book gets into, and also the new video covering all this. She's a very influential lady and very intelligent, and we're really glad that she has the courage to get into all this, and we're going to send her more of this information. But here it is, potential for death. And, Naomi, what do you think of them apples?
Potential for death. I mean, you know, terrifying and yet not surprising. Because once you see footage, which is why I'm so concerned about the election, of, you know, a handful of angry voters who've just been purged from the rolls, you know, speaking up and being tasered to death, oops, accidentally or in defense, or, you know, being quote-unquote subdued by, you know, these lethal and non-lethal technologies, which the initial Army Times report said that the 1st Brigade had.
And they now have mass tasers? They now have mass tasers?
What? You're telling me they have mass tasers?
Yeah, it's a big taser they roll out that shoots a bunch of cords out and shocks
it.
Yeah.
Alex, really, I can't, you know, it's like just when I think I've reached, you know, I understand where we are, you bring up new information that takes it one step further. All right, so, you know, all we need is some repeating footage on CNN or Fox News of, you know, 5 Americans, you know, in the street, brutally wounded or worse from these technologies, and then you can still have, as I've learned, you know, all the trappings of civil society intact, but people just go quiet, you know, understandably. I mean, you know, if there's military standing outside the polling booth, you're a lot less inclined to argue vociferously with, you know, the registrar if you and all your neighbors have been purged from the rolls.
Well, I think Barack Obama is going to come into office, and then I think the left's going to be completely co-opted. And I don't have to go into him saying he wouldn't go for wiretapping or he'd end the war and flip-flopping. I mean, the Wall Street money's on him. This is giving him left cover. The left, the mainline left, is suddenly going to love FEMA camps and mass arrest. And
oh, God, I don't think so. The mainline left will be the ones, you know, right in the front lines. I mean, they'll be targeted.
But not if it's Barack Obama. Not if it's...
All right, so let me just say for your audience, because people have rightly said, when will Alex Jones persuade Naomi Wolf that there is, you know, that she needs to see beyond the left-right paradigm? And I have to say you all are making a lot of headway with me, because while I still believe that an Obama presidency at least will staunch the immediate decline into a police state, I've also been saying in public again and again that it is going to be business as usual, in the sense that unless there's an enraged bipartisan, transpartisan citizens movement to restore liberty and the Constitution, here's why. Barack Obama, with these rights, is going to be these powers, is going to be tempted to use them just as the founders knew any leader will. And the trillions of dollars to be made in surveillance and security technologies by vested interests who benefit from a police state, you know, have the same pressures on him that they would on any other candidate. So it is going to be up to us as citizens to hold any leader's feet to the fire. We're not, I would rather have a constitutional anyone than an unconstitutional Democrat in office.
Naomi Wolf, our guest for the next 50 minutes. Your phone calls at 800-25-99231. I'm going to cover the coup de grace, the key info, with her when we get back. Stay with us.
He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
All right, let me make this statement. This is key.